So there seems to be this general consensus that Sony is doing all of these anti-consumer practices. And I think I have a little bit of a different perspective on it. Let's get into the video. Let's talk about it. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's that guy Ken, back again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the dreaded anti-consumer, a word that you can't seem to get around. Anytime you go online and you go on social media, you see this word. It seems to be inescapable. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because there seems to be this rhetoric around Sony just making all of these like anti-consumer decisions and all of this kind of stuff, right? Especially when they start comparing it to Microsoft. And I think there's a bit of a point of contention there because, their strategies are not the same. It's like comparing apples and oranges. And when you hear the word practice, it makes it sound like it's a part of their culture, like this company is doing all of these things that are just centered around, making anti-consumer decisions in general, like as a part of their philosophy or whatever the case is, right? And I just don't think that's quite the case. But really, we'll get into it by saying, if you look back, right, in the history of the industry, right, back in like the 90s or whatever the case is, right, a lot of those games were expensive. Sometimes like upwards of 80, 90, sometimes over $100 to get access to some of these games, right? It wasn't until a little after, right, the PS1, PS2, so on and so forth, right, where some of these games were more reasonable in price, like $40, $50 or whatever the case is, right? But if you've noticed throughout the history of the industry, the prices have gradually gone up. And obviously there are a few different reasons for this, but I think one of the main reasons is the simple fact that the cost of development has gone up as well. Especially considering the fact that, a lot more people are getting into the industry, better technology, better games, and just the simple fact that the industry is blown up. It's grown ever since, the 90s and the early 2000s. So it makes sense that things would become more expensive. Gone are the days where games would cost, $2 million, a few $1,000,000 to create a game, and then these companies can make so much profit on top. Now games are costing upwards of 100, 200 million, sometimes over $500 million to make some of these games. So it's incredibly expensive. Now, I make the argument that the industry was already headed in the direction of prices going up anyway, especially when you start hearing what some people are saying, because people are saying, obviously because of some of the things that happened recently, the PS5 price hike, which I believe that was circumstantial due to the state of the economy, and obviously the $70 game since we've began this this current generation. So people are saying that Sony's just making all of these anti-consumer decisions, and I believe that the industry was headed that way anyway. It just sucks that Sony had to get thrown under the bus and be the scapegoat because they had to make a decision, that made sense for them. Now, I'm going to switch over to Microsoft, right? Because people tend to compare what Sony and Microsoft are doing. Microsoft is selling their games for a cheaper price, right? Well, yeah, that's true. But you have to also remember that Microsoft is being backed by $1 trillion company. They have $1 trillion war chest to eat the cost of anything that essentially doesn't work. So it allows them to make decisions that don't really make financial sense. And when I say it doesn't make financial sense, I mean it's because of the fact that Microsoft is losing money on almost everything that they're doing, from their games, Game Pass, and all of their consoles. So it doesn't really make financial sense for them to do it, but they're able to do that and give some of these games out for cheaper prices, right? because of the amount of money that they have available to them. It's a strategy that works for them given their position, right? Now, why would Microsoft even do this in the first place, right? And I believe that obviously they're trying to garner goodwill with the people, especially since their brand has been on a decline since the Xbox 360. I mean, what better way, right, than to try to garner goodwill with the people of their declining brand, right, than to try to give their games away for cheap prices, Game Pass and so on and so forth. Like I said, it's just a strategy that works for them. I don't necessarily believe that it's pro-consumer. It's just something that works in their particular position. It doesn't make it anti-consumer, obviously. It's just it is what it is kind of situation. Now, in context to Sony's not able to do these kind of things. They're not able to make that decision because they're not backed by $1 trillion company. You know, they have to make calculated decisions on the games that they create or whatever the case, because they can't continuously eat the cost of making these big AAA games, $100-200 million, for them to potentially fail or whatever the case is, right? Now, that's a strategy that works for them, and just simply because of the fact that the price is going up does not necessarily mean that the decision that they've made is anti-consumer, especially when you consider the fact that $70 is only $10 more than what we've been paying before, so it's not unreasonable. But when it's funny, when you look at the rest of the industry, you start seeing some of these other publishers and companies doing the same exact thing. You know, when you start looking at games like Callisto Protocol, Dead Space, the Call of Duty games, so on and so forth, right? All of these games are $70. Why do you think that is? Well, clearly, it's because the cost of development is going up, and it's incredibly risky for them to put that much investment into a game for the potential of it to fail. And it seems like people are just not understanding this, and they're like switching the words around to make it seem like what Sony is doing is anti-consumer, when really the industry was heading in that direction anyway. Now, I guarantee you with Microsoft, the prices are going to go up. It's going to happen. I guarantee it. Especially when you consider the fact that Game Pass is like Microsoft or Xbox's bread and butter. Like, that's what their identity is right now. So everything that they're doing is being channeled through Game Pass. Meaning that at some point, the price that they are offering is going to go up to reflect the increase of how much it would cost to build these games, to put some of these more expensive AAA games into the service. Now, I want to see if people are going to hold the same energy, because really, people are saying, especially with Sony, since the prices are simply going up, it's anti-consumer, right? You can make the same argument with Microsoft and Xbox and Game Pass. Well, if the prices go up in Game Pass, well, you could argue that it's anti-consumer, right? Because you're paying more money than what you were before. But we all know that it's a little bit more nuanced than that, especially when you start considering the fact that a lot of these subscription services in general are just not doing as well as people think they are. And, you know, they've been raising their prices as well. You know, Netflix, Disney Plus, so on and so forth. But yeah, anyway, that's all I had to say, guys. I don't think I have anything else to say on this particular topic. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.